Greetings, film freaks. We are the Podcorn Kernels. Join us as we discuss the hard and often indigestible truths that are at the center of the fluffy and delicious world of cinema. Season 2.
What's poppin', people? Welcome to the Podcorn Kernels Podcast. My name is Adam, and joining me in your earholes is Harry. Say hello, Harry.
We have similar faces.
On today's episode, we will be talking about The End We Start From. This is a 2023 film directed by Mahalia Belo and stars Jodie Comer, Joel Fry, and Benedict Cumberbatch. IMDb describes the synopsis as follows. A woman and her newborn try to find their way home while an environmental crisis submerges London in floodwaters. Here is an original song to support the synopsis. Rain, rain, go away. You wanted to go, I want you to stay. Rain, rain, go away. We stay together, come what may. The end where we start, when we first set sail. We drifted apart, but our love prevails. Mother Nature shed biblical tears. One mum remained to face her fears. Rain, rain, go away. You wanted to go, I want you to stay. Rain, rain, go away. We stay together, come what may. Let's start with some facts about the film. Following a number of stalking incidents, including one that allegedly occurred on the set, Jodie Comer was fearing for her own safety.
Lord.
Co-star and executive producer Benedict Cumberbatch recommended a bodyguard who had previously looked after him, and the producers took an extra effort to make sure that everyone on the set was safe. It's coming back.
Is that because Benedict Timothy Carlton Cumberbatch said coloured on a US interview panel?
Did he?
He did.
So he was getting stalked for being accidentally controversial?
I don't know if it was 100% it. I know there's a lot of hate pages for old, I have to say, old Benedict Timothy Carlton Cumberbatch. But I do know that when he was being interviewed on US television, he went to say something that was in support of the minority actors in the UK. And he went, the problem is, the coloured actors in the UK don't get as many roles.
Oh.
And I did wonder, I think potentially maybe a security guard got inserted after that, but I think he's always had a little bit of hate because his heritage goes back to slave ownership in the Caribbean, doesn't it?
Oh, does it?
And if you're still in the modern day, in the 2020s, accidentally dropping words like coloured, it shows you how backdated and how privileged he really was.
Well, it must mean that word is in his vocabulary and is still being used amongst friends and family, surely, for that to sort of instinctively creep into what you're saying.
It must be a very, very natural thing he hears in his world. I mean, the guy grew up in Chelsea and Kensington. He went to Harrow.
Yeah.
He's 15 times removed from Richard III. That's true.
Fact?
And he's played Richard III, yes. He reeks of privilege. Like his parents, there's one thing I have in common with his parents. They wanted him to be a barrister. I agree.
Oh, it's fair to say you're not Benedict's biggest boy, are you?
No one could have done Sherlock better. He smashed Sherlock and he was brilliant in Power of the Dog. Yeah. But other than that, I don't like him. I find like he's trying to rid himself of his extremely affluent past, and it still reeks through for me. Like in interviews and stuff, he's very pretentious.
Well, thankfully he's not in this film too much, and I mean at least he was supportive of Comer getting rid of her stalker. That's a good thing.
Totally. It's all. I mean, I'm only theorising that, but that probably didn't help his case in not needing a stalker. He probably needed in not needing a bodyguard.
I think strangely, and this might be a controversial take, but stalking's coming back. Do you know what I mean? It's probably, not to belittle the stalking as a horrible thing that can happen to an individual or a group of people. Obviously, it's a terrible, terrible thing. But in this day and age of social media, it feels so much easier to be able to track where the people are getting, where people are going to be, where the rich and famous hang out, where they are, because they're always taking pictures and updating everyone where they're at.
Well, that guy's just been charged and sentenced for planning to kidnap and kill Holly Willoughby, who's a British TV presenter. Have you seen a photo of him?
He's a big boy.
He looks like a porcini mushroom.
He does look like a porcini mushroom.
You're right, though. I bet stalking's always been there. Look at Jill Dando.
Yeah.
You know, she got blown away on her steps.
It's just, it seems to have had this weird surgence in popular culture since like Baby Reindeer, because there's this fact. I mean, this film only came out in 2023, and there's the fact you just spoke of Holly Willoughby. I wonder why suddenly people are getting back into stalking. What a weird sentence.
Like you said, I suppose checking in or showing that you're at a concert on social media, it's so much more easily accessible now. You used to have to go through phone books, and find and proper like worm your way through receptionists and that to get a good stalk going on. But do you not find that there's a huge hypocrisy there with Cumberbatch trying to, on national television, support the minority actors when he's the reason they don't get jobs? Because he had fallbacks. He could, his parents didn't want him to be an actor, even though his dad was an actor, his mum was a theatre director. He has fallbacks. They wanted him to be a barrister. He's loaded. His money comes from slavery and all of that stuff. And that's not his fault. He was not, he didn't ask to be born. I totally understand that. But he is one of the main reasons why minority actors don't get a foot in the door, because the privilege that he has allows him to say, this month I'm going to be an actor. And, he ended up liking it. I do find that that's the actual issue. Yeah,
I mean, I think if that's his history, and if he's already got like one step up on everyone else, it's hard not to sort of hold it against the guy, even though, as you say, it's not really his fault.
But it's not his place to go on national television and say, like, England don't do enough for minority actors. Dude, you're part of the reason that they don't really get some screen time. And they're actually, fuck the minority part of it. Equality in terms of classism. That's the real issue. A lot of lower class actors have to juggle day jobs and try and get a role and one day hopefully maybe be seen. When you've got unlimited funds to attend auditions, to hone your craft, to go to gyms, to have a nutritionist, everything, you're going to be more appealing, aren't you? Yeah. This little cunt went to Harrow. They got one of the most prestigious like pre-college drama troupes going on ever. Like, they're huge, all them private schoolboy schools, and he reeks of it. And I think he's tried to strip himself of it over years, but it doesn't take away from his Sherlock, the best Sherlock I ever saw, ever will see, I think. And Power of the Dog, I thought, was my favourite turn of him. I wasn't a huge fan of Imitation Game, and his other work, the Marvel stuff and that, I don't know.
I guess that's probably why he is coming out and trying to be proactive in speaking for others on behalf of others, because there's probably that default setting of us as Brits being a little bit against him. And I guess he's trying to do all he can to sort of change that perspective.
But it's and the first time he goes to do it, he says coloured. And then his apologies, like, I'm so stupid, I can't apologise enough for my stupidity. I know I've hurt so many people. It's like the apology was almost more nauseating than the act. Yeah. Anyway, you've opened up the door, and I'm sorry that I went down it with 5 grenades.
I apologise in advance because I'm about to open another Benedict door my next fact.
Yes.
Benedict Cumberbatch's company, Sunny March, acquired the rights in May 2017 to Megan Hunter's debut novel, The End We Start From, before the book had even been published. Cumberbatch was quoted as saying, "It was a stunning tale of motherhood and a striking and frighteningly real story of a family fighting for survival that will make everyone stop and think about what kind of planet we are leaving behind for our children."
What would he know about motherhood? He went to boarding school. She didn't love him. He was 8 years old.
Okay. So we're still not done with the Benedict bashing.
No.
It's my fault for having 2 facts with the man's name in, because I know you dislike. Hey, if you dislike him and you've got reasons,
I've given him huge kudos.
Yes,
I have huge kudos. I know he's an absolute phenomenal Shakespearean stage actor as well.
You shook his hand for Sherlock and bashed him ponderhead for being Benedict, and that is a balance.
He is hiding a lot of what makes him him, because he thinks, like, I need to disguise the fact that I reek of privilege.
Should we speak about the fact and
I'm sorry
about Benedict?
Yes.
But I think that's quite interesting, the fact that the book hadn't even been published and his production company are like, we want to buy the rights. The book wasn't even there yet, and they was like, yep, that's a premise we're interested in.
That's just a business model though, isn't it? Yeah. Hunting out talent before any other studio picks it up. Yeah.
Bit cutthroat. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 88% of 73 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.8 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, led by Jodie Comer's gripping performance in the central role, The End We Start From offers a thoughtful, haunting look at the end of the world. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 65 out of 100 based on 25 critics, indicating generally favourable reviews. Now, when you hear a fact like that in the fact section, it's because there's not a lot of trivia out there for this film.
No, not yet. It's quite new, isn't it?
It's quite a fresh film, but it's interesting because these are all high numbers. And yes, like we've mentioned before, these collective average scores, they're not from a huge sort of pool of, a big figure of numbers and stuff. But to hear that they're all really positive, common consensus doesn't match that.
Do you consider that positive? I've been seeing some 5.8s, 5.7s. That might be the mass low.
I feel that any really high-rated opinions on this film is because of the larger subject matter. Because you don't have to look too far to see this is a story about being kinder to the environment, geopolitics, global warming, all of these things. And it feels people that really laud it are probably those people that are, the importance of all of that is something that they find really important. And it is, of course, very important. But I wouldn't be surprised if those people that really, really enjoy this film are sort of environmental activists, or those that are very...
Totally.
Yeah.
There was no subtext to it. It was right on the nose. It was a blend between postnatal depression and climate change.
Yeah.
Just smashed together in a Hadron Collider and boom, let's go.
Heavy hitting topics across the board, right?
Yeah.
Did you like anything about The End We Start From?
Why are you asking me that?
I don't know.
Why are you asking me that?
I don't know.
I did, yeah. I liked the mentally crippling prison that is incessant rain. I could relate to that because I once lived in a place called Hawley, and it's very flat. It's near an airport, so it's a very flat area, and it tends to flood. And my 4-month-old Babbles was stuck indoors with me for months while it rained outside, and literally puddles the size of ponds in front of the cars and the drives, and you'd be soaked to walk anywhere.
Yeah.
So immediately I found similarities, and even though I didn't rip my vagina open to give birth to the baby or having gorged nipples, I sat there and went, me coma. We both in that same boat.
Yeah, you're fighting against the tide.
Yeah. Good choice of words.
Thanks.
Good choice of words. Yeah, so I was immediately taken by the rain. I kind of wanted the rain to stay throughout. Yeah. I wanted that to be the villain constantly breathing down everyone's neck. But it does suspend a few times in the film where there's a bit of blue sky, and then when the rain stops, the cunts come out.
Yeah.
Don't they?
Yeah.
And you see the ugly face of humanity. So yeah, the rain.
Yeah, I think that's the weird thing to say. The biggest thing I liked about the film as well was that elemental antagonist. Now, I do love me a natural disaster movie, and I enjoyed how the threat of flood was the film's biggest disruptor. The End We Start From utilises the less is more approach by consciously conveying the crisis off camera, and the use of the unseen uncertainty and the building of panic was really effective. I do kind of agree with you, though. Those breaks between the weather kind of lessens the impact for me. It should have been just consistent.
Constant.
Like, you can't get a break from it. Like, you could step outdoors for a split second and be drenched. For me, the whole film would have been far more powerful and impactful if there was no respite, if it was just a continuous sheet of rain.
That would have been its greatest identity as well, because we've had many films showing how difficult it is to go through childbirth and postnatal depression, and loads of films on climate change and the end of the world. But if a film consistently and never stops having rain, imagine the behind the scenes, imagine the commentary about how them actors were wet just constantly. Like, that would have been a much more interesting undertaking, and I would have been more gripped and less depressed, even though it would have rained throughout.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I mean, I've got another little point on that first like, and Mother Nature is the biggest villain of all. And I thought the way director Mahalia Belo showed us aftermaths and consequences rather than action and CGI was a far more impactful way to drive the narrative home. Like you say, though, if that was continuous, because if you were acting on a set where you were getting soaked all the time, there would become a point where you're no longer acting. You would just be pissed off for being wet all of the time.
Yeah.
Whether your take was 10 minutes or 2 hours, you'd be like, for fuck's sake, I just want to be dry.
Method without consent.
Exactly, yeah. Forced method might be the best way to act. But I completely agree.
That's prison, isn't it?
Yeah, you may well be, yeah. But I think if the film was that bleak throughout, I mean, like you say, it is a depressing an hour and 46 minutes or however long it was. And if it was all rain all the time, it probably add another layer to that bleakness. But for a natural disaster film, it should be sort of wholly natural disaster. I think the film's main message is perseverance and pushing through and keeping going and staying strong, all of these things. If there's breakups between that onslaught of bad weather with really nice days, it's hard. It doesn't land as well, I think.
Yeah. If there was any blue in the clouds, between the clouds and stuff, it changed for me, the film. Yeah. Second, like, Coma. Even though I want to say coma, is it coma or coma?
I think it's coma, chameleon.
There we go. Coma taking on one of the most difficult characters to play or achieve in acting, pregnant and giving birth. Like, their roles I would never want if I was an actor. So hats off to her for adding another notch to her belt, because being told, like, right, you're going to be pregnant and you're going to have a birth scene and stuff, that just must be like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like, that must be such a... I don't know if she's had kids in real life.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea, but I'm assuming she probably hasn't. She's very young into her career, very successful. She might not have had time for that yet. Like, especially if you've not done it. Like, it must be so weird.
Yeah. I wonder if that was a conscious decision by the director and the production team of getting an actor in that hasn't had a kid yet, because the character hasn't had a kid yet. So it'd be all new, and I guess it would add another layer of realism for her to be acting alongside a newborn and going through the stages of pregnancy when she hasn't experienced it. Maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah. I just think, like, historically there would have been roles that actors never wanted to do. So, say for instance, and this is just an example, but let's say for instance, Robert De Niro's never played a homosexual character. Now, we don't know the reasons why, but let's say for instance, during the 70s or something, when he was doing Taxi Driver and stuff, the thought of doing it was like, I don't think I could pull that off.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I could.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it would be the pregnancy thing. It would be having a baby, like, scream, then we're going to pull this prosthetic baby out of prosthetic vagina and stuff. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
I mean, it's very intimate, isn't it?
Very.
And it's asking an awful lot for someone to, like, act that. Because imagine you gave it your all on one take, cried as much as you could, screamed, and then the director goes, cut, can you do it again? It'd be fucking exhausting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Tough one. And it's hard to get that bloody image out your head for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Innit?
I mean, birth is beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's go on record and saying that.
Do you know when people say, look at this image for 60 seconds and don't blink, and then close your eyes and you'll see Jesus? Because of some clever, clever things that they do with the actual drawing or image itself. So throughout the film, I just kept seeing her gape throughout. Her axe wound. I was like, Jesus. I mean, it's the first thing you see. It's the most horrific part of the film.
It is, again, birth is beautiful, but the way it's shown in this film, in the environment as well, it's not a normal hospital environment. It's rushed, all kicking off. Yeah, she's not being able to stick to her birth plan. It isn't considered. It isn't peaceful. There's all sorts of chaos going around, and that is a striking image that sort of sticks with you.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. 3. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And in a catastrophe, it only takes one arsehole to incite panic or be selfish. And that whole house of cards comes tumbling down.
Yeah.
And I think the film showed that really well.
It does.
Like, the people weren't overly aggressive, but they were desperate. So if you interacted with them, you tended to end in, like, discourse and fighting. And, you know, Mark Strong's wife in this, who is Jodie Comer's mother-in-law, you don't see her die, but they come back from a food run. Ridiculous that they all had to leave a new mother.
Yeah, I had that as an original dislike, but then other dislikes supplanted it. Yeah, why would you leave a newborn and a new mum in a home in the middle of a crisis like this?
Well, that was all subtext to highlight postnatal depression. Yeah, so when you've had a baby, you're the caregiver. Even if you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, there's this thing in you that's like, I can't leave the baby, but you're also having a huge exhausted mental and physical breakdown. It's really common, and you know that's how it feels, pure isolation. But you could also have everyone around you and feel isolated. Yeah. But the fact that the mum went along, ridiculous. She should have just stayed with Coma. Like, it's almost a plot hole. Like Mark Strong's like, it's easier if we all go. It's not. You're leaving a new mum with a new baby not, she's vulnerable because she has a baby. If she's on her own, she might be able to defend herself, but she's thinking of the baby. I thought that was stupid.
Yeah.
And I thought it was weak. And if that's in the book, the writer should look into that, because that's poor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if that was my partner amidst all of that, I think I would at least ensure that someone was with her. If she's just given birth and there's a natural disaster happening and everybody's kicking off and there's fighting on the streets and on the brink of war because everyone's struggling and so stressed and it's just awful. I don't think I could leave her and our child on her own. No. Now, if I was to go, I would want someone at least that I trust and that she knows to be with her. I can't, like you, that was a glaring dislike for me, but I didn't include it.
If you can divide equally, you should.
Always.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
Fourth, I liked how at the 51-minute mark, when the commune is attacked, that it reminded me of the Bosnian War, but as depicted by Ben Stiller in episode 1, series 1 of Extras.
Okay.
I laughed at the smoke machine and grieving mothers. It offered some light relief, and I challenge anyone to compare the two scenes and not laugh.
Okay.
Watch it.
Well, it's kind of similar to what I had with Rear Window and the Simpsons parody. If you've seen something in a comical sort of situation, you can't help but compare it to something when it's meant to be serious.
It was so similar. Like, it was literally like someone said action, smoke machine, a few women screaming, a couple of like gunshots. I was just like, this is Extras.
Yeah.
Fifth, like, rescued by vegetarians.
Okay.
You know when they get on the boat towards the end?
Yeah.
And they get to the island, and that group of people that come down, they just look like full-time yogas. They look like yoga and courgette. And that's not a diss, but I thought this reeks of some sort of like vegetarian commune.
Yeah, it did have that vibe, didn't it?
I found it quite funny. Yeah. That was my likes.
Good likes. Some little nichey ones there, which I'm always here for. Mine is less nichey, and I like the water scenes. From the opening shot of a bath filling up to the striking juxtaposition between calm and chaos that is shown later in the film, the end we start from uses water really cleverly. The flooding and its impact is the film's biggest character, and the way it is used to show the dangers of something so important to survival was really impressive. Innovative and intimidating, I found using flood instead of drought or heat a really welcome change to a genre that usually focuses on humanity not having enough water instead of an abundance of it. The film is contemplative crisis cinema that shows just how fragile society is and how quickly we fold in a crisis. Look at the pandemic, people. Some of y'all really lost your heads in that, huh?
Yeah.
I think the film almost mirrors how we, as a majority, handled the early days of COVID.
Definitely.
And it was that for me. It feels like there's going to be lots of films that come out and have some sort of reflection about how we, as a society, reacted to something that we had no idea how to react to. And this feels like that. The way that everyone lost their heads, the way that it just went so quickly, people were out for themselves. I worked in a bakery in a supermarket when it was the first day that it was meant to be lockdown, and the only place you're meant to go is a supermarket, and you're meant to keep away from everyone. That supermarket had never been busier. Every single fucker was in there filling their trolleys up, and this was day one.
Do you remember that footage of the two fat women having a full-on fight in an aisle over some like food thing? But they were huge birds. They were big. And I was like, you could probably do without it.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
You'll be all right.
You'll be all right.
This might do you some good.
Yeah, stick to just one tin of soup and you might come out of this even better.
It was ugly, man. I remember seeing some bellend leave the local Tesco Express with like 12 bags of nappies. Madness. And this is before they put caps on for like eggs and flour and all that shit. And walking out with like 12, 13 bags of nappies. It's like, don't be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, for me...
You can put a cloth on your baby's bum and wash it. Like, you don't...
Yeah.
Nappy's not essential, is it?
It's selfishness rather than necessity, isn't it? And for me, for all the film's flaws, and there is a fair few of them in this, it for me, it did hold a mirror up to how we, as a species, can sort of react in a crisis. And it is alarming when you see it. I know at the start of the pandemic... I know that there was this fella, it made the news and it was almost went round wildfire around the supermarkets. But there was a fella that when it heard that COVID had started happening in China, he went out and mass bought hand sanitizer.
And made a fortune.
He went and bought it. At the time, it was £1 a pop. Went and cleared supermarkets to the point where people were going, well, what's all this about? And he's like, oh, there's that thing in China, and people laughed at him. Then when it happened, the sanitizer was one of the first things to sell out. This guy was selling them at 10 quid, so it's like a £9 profit on each bottle.
See, I think that's genius, getting ahead of a pandemic and making millions. Do you want to just quickly tell the audience what's happening outside?
Yeah, so we don't know what the weather will be when this episode goes live, but as we're currently speaking about a film about flooding and rain, it is torrential downpour outside.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been like this for a good while over here.
And when we do films that are hot and uncomfortable,
Yeah.
it is boiling here.
It's a sweaty mess in here. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. It adds to the realism and the conversation.
I wish there was as much rain as there was outside now throughout the whole film, as we already mentioned, actually.
Yep.
Yep.
That could have made that film so much more substantial.
Mm-hmm. Final apocalyptic England. Seeing my country of origin as the setting of a natural disaster film was a novelty for me. It's often set in America, where the places, the people, the size and the sheer scale of everything is completely different to what I am used to.
28 Days.
I liked the fact that this was set in places familiar to me and showed people similar to those who I would see out and about. These levels of relatability added another level to a film that superbly shows desperation and panic, alongside a reminder to enjoy the good moments before they wash away.
Get you. Get you with the punnage.
Yeah, I did think that. I did go, when I was writing that, I was going, hang on, Adam. 28 Days Later exists, and that's set in England, but that's not a natural disaster. That's more of zombie horror, so I thought I'd leave it in.
Well, we've read into this, haven't we? And it's kind of hard to determine natural disaster because someone might say that The Birds is natural disaster film.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a bunch of seagulls kill anyone.
No. I've seen a squirrel. I've seen a fucking
Squirrel?
seagull eat a big old mouse, and I was shook. I told you about it. I was in Cornwall. I thought they ate chips and fish and other litterings of food on the floor. I didn't know they ate live mice.
Well, if they ever do a glaring clouder for mice, then maybe that could be the natural disaster film for mice.
And if you're wondering what a glaring clouder is, you'll have to listen to our last episode, motherfuckers. What didn't you like about the end we start from, please?
The first 30 minutes, man, they were so depressing. I had to go for a bike ride whilst the sun was out. The sun burst through the clouds, and the first 30 minutes of this film is so grim. England can be quite depressing as it is. So when a film's set there with lonely childbirth, rain, mother death, then suicide, it's just like, this is so bleak. And luckily I'd done enough throughout the last week or two to fill my tank of happiness.
Yeah.
But this film drained me within minutes. So I went out for a bike ride, came back, made a cup of tea, then pressed play again. But it was a grind. It was a very depressing film.
This is fascinating to me because I actually thought the first half was stronger than the second half. And
doesn't equate non-depression.
You're right. I can't say here and go, Harold, what are you talking about? The first half an hour was pure shits and gigs. I had a great time. It's bleak city central, let's be honest. Yeah. I'll go on to that more in the dislikes. But yeah, I can't disagree with you. If 30 minutes into a film it made you have to go out and touch some grass and get some fresh air, that's damning, right?
It was bleak. It's worse that it's set in England because that's very close to home. And it's like, I have days where I head into town and it's a rainy day and I see, fucking fast food delivery drivers absolutely everywhere. I see chavs, I see rundown shops, rubbish on the floor, and I'm like, fuck, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Yeah. And
this film starts like that and basically maintains an anti-sertraline sort of air to it throughout. Second dislike. Music at 32 minutes sounds like intense, like build up to something, a change for survival or to start dominating rather than be a victim. And it never materialised. She just sits down.
All that build up to just take a seat.
Yeah, it felt like something bold was going to happen. It felt like she was going to grab a machete from like a cupboard and go, right, fuck this. None of us are going to be victims anymore.
Oh, this would be a completely different film if the second half was Mummy Machete. I'd watch that film for sure.
I've got loads of little micro ones, so I'll just give them to you.
Okay,
you answer if you want, but use the whole bath, Joel Fry. You're tall, you can't baby up at one end anymore. You're just talking to him in the bath. He's putting all 6'5" of him in this little box at the end of the bath. I'm like, why couldn't he just lay down and sit up a little? Why is he all fetile at the end of the bath?
Showing vulnerability, I guess.
Just because he lost his parents.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
stretch out, lad. Stretch out.
I mean,
you'll feel better for it.
It's tragic, but at the same time, stretch out, because I know I hate baths because I love them. Do you get what I mean?
You're going to have to go into that a bit more.
I love a bath,
but
they rarely fit me. My length, something's always sitting out, either my tits, my tummy island, or my knees. I can't ever fully submerge in a bath.
Nor can I, but that's our height. We're rich in height.
Yes, but I want a deep Victorian 7 foot tall bath.
I want to submerge thyself. I'm with you there. I know what you mean there, yeah.
I kept singing Here Comes the Rain Again by Eurythmics.
I mean, it's a tune.
Yep.
It's a bop.
It just kept entering my head.
Yep.
Next one. This grinded me a little, but like in the film, when she gets to a commune outside, there's a speaker and they say, we're only accepting women and children, we're full, and primary caregivers. Well, okay then, what's a granddad doing sitting on a bed chatting to some Sheila like he's just finished a yoga class? Where's the sounds of children crying or laughing? There's a bunch of single men, including a ripped man who shows no signs of malnutrition. You would only need, a week without regular sustenance and water intake, and it would start to show you'd lose muscle and fat loss. 3 days, you start to really show. And there's this big, tonk, British chav actor who's probably been in Rise of the Foot Soldiers, like, what are you doing my fucking pillow? And he's tonk. I was like, that's bollocks. Maybe... This is a survival film. This has been going on for months. How the hell is he so ripped and got... obtaining the nutrition he needs? Watch that scene. It is terrible. When Coma first enters the commune, there's these like single men extras walking on set. It's the worst directed, worst background acting I've ever seen. They're like, one walks to his bed with a hoodie in his hand, he sits down, and then he wants to get back in the shot, so he stands up and walks off the bed again.
Oh, hi, Mark.
What are you doing? Yeah, there's bald fat guys sitting on a bed having a background conversation with a woman. Neither of them are caregivers. Neither of them are a mother or a father to anyone. Yeah. I was sitting there like, this is shit. This is cheap.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Number 6, baby changed race or identity a couple of times. That never once looked like the same baby in any 2 scenes. Not once.
Okay.
It just kept changing. Watch it again.
All right.
Fair enough, you can't ask a baby to do a 5-week shoot, 12-week shoot.
Why not?
They probably interchanged the baby, but it was too glaringly obvious for me.
Okay.
Chavs with fully automatic rifles approaching a commune but concealing their identity as if there are consequences. Wait, where does a bunch of chavs, right? A chav can barely pull up his trousers. Where are they getting fucking automatic rifles and taking down a base that's guarded by soldiers? Who wrote this?
I don't know, man. I don't have the answers, and I'm sorry.
It was cheap and shit, and I didn't like that bit. Number 8, I've already said it. I couldn't get her raw, recently given birth vagina out my head. And that happened in the first. And I'm not squeamish. Like, I've had baby. Yeah. Love childbirth, beautiful. Breastfeed, beautiful. But the first thing you see is a very, very raw Coma vagina. And it's hard to look past that.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
I think
that's 8.
I think that might be your record of the most dislikes you've ever given.
Yeah. It was more like a 2-part drama on ITV.
Okay. Interesting. Shall I go on to mine?
Yeah.
Road movie without enough interesting pit stops. Large parts of the end we start from really worked for me. The premise, the use of water, the pacing, the setting, the parent and child protagonist pairing. There was lots of goodness to be consumed here. Despite this, though, the journey itself felt like it lacked something. The suspense was palpable and the tension was held throughout. But once Coma and Child were on their own, that total sense of fear and panic seemed to simmer down a bit. I found the first half of the film to be far more engaging than the second, and the inevitable stops amidst a treacherous journey back home felt a little less impactful than maybe they should have.
Yes, I agree.
So, I mean, it's interesting. The first 30 minutes for you was like, I need to get out. The first 30 minutes for me was what gripped me. And I guess for me, what worked is the fact that it was set in Britain, was the fact that I could relate me working in the COVID with the public when that happened. I think there was elements that I could pull on and relate to. But once they were on their own, it didn't keep that level. Like we mentioned, like the rain stopping and starting, it sort of lessened the impact. Now, there's lots about the idea of this film, the premise, lots of it did work for me. Those little hang-ups you had, if I'd noticed them, I probably would have bugged me to fuck as well. Because if you're noticing that bad things happen in the background, that's a result of bad filmmaking. You shouldn't be picking up on that. You should be so much more focused on what's happening with the characters and the storyline, that if you're straying elsewhere, that is a problem in the filmmaking process.
Well, Coma envisaged, she keeps seeing her boyfriend, who she thinks is dead because he had to leave her at the commune. And then she sees him on the bed next to her. And then when it comes back to reality, it's just like a 35-year-old, quite good-looking guy asleep. And I'm like, where is his child? Is he a caregiver?
Yeah.
Like, if one man's left outside, I don't see. There's just too many plot holes.
I know what you mean. I feel like at this point they are only now accepting women and children because maybe they fit their quota of men. Maybe that's what it is.
So if a woman and baby
explained.
came up and there was a single man, like ripped chav guy, they couldn't say, "Guy, this is a woman and a baby. You need to switch out. You need to leave."
Because he wouldn't. Yeah. For me, I mean, again, you are right, because we are doing the work here. We're now going, oh, well, maybe it's because they've reached their limit of men or whatever. But that's not explained. If that's the case, it should be like, we've got too many men. We've got too many men in here. It's like a nightclub. We've got too many men.
Sorry, mate.
Too much sausage in here. We need to open it up to other people. But they're not. You're right. And then you see loads of blokes and you're like, well, what's happened? So I can't disagree in that sense. That's not a bad segue to my second dislike, though, and that's anti-man. Anti-man. Listen, I get it. Men are assholes. We are the default villain. This is our cross to bear. Historically, men haven't always been great. It's marked as red. Again, I get it. And as a man, I am sorry.
Yeah, what about Lucy Letby and Mary Bell?
I'm sorry,
and Rose
okay?
West and Myra Hindley.
I'm sorry, okay? But in this day and age, where a film, series or creative individual can get cancelled if they or their product is not deemed politically correct, representative or well balanced, I found the lack of a decent male character on display here a little troubling. The end we start from seemingly paints all men as either a coward, a thug, inherently weak, or a blended mixture of all of the above. The closest we see of a good guy in this film is Cumblebum Bandersnatch, and he is only in it for 5 minutes.
Carlton Timothy?
Yep. And even he gets a couple of stranded mothers drunk and then fucks off. I am merely pointing this out because, in this day and age, if a male director painted his female characters to be entirely lesser or in a purely negative light, there would be, and has been, witch hunts. I also kick off when female characters are underwritten or poorly fleshed out in features, folks. So don't come at me with your drama llamas, okay? I'm on record in this podcast, and do me a favour and listen back to other episodes because that helps our cause, of saying the women characters in this have been written terribly. From a male director, they've been written poor, they haven't been fleshed out. In this film, there is not one redeeming male.
What's your beef with the Joel Fry, the partner of Jodie Comer?
Well, he's painted to be, I mean, he's gone through a hell of a lot, of course, and he's very vulnerable as a result, of course. But it's almost like he left too quick. He didn't even try to get in and say, look, this is my family. He didn't fight for his right to stick with family. He was very quick to sort of leave. He was very quick to abandon them. And then later on, he comes back and everything works out great. But
where was he when she gave birth? You're right in that regard, actually, because they show him to be quite absent. I mean, you could say, yeah, there's a disaster unfolding, but if your wife's so close to giving birth and a disaster is unfolding, I think they mentioned he's potentially an engineer.
Yeah.
Well, fucking you. Oh, well, I suppose he could be building defences for water. But like the fact that he misses the birth, that's obviously potentially another huge dig at absent fathers.
It felt a lot, and if I'm incorrect, I apologise, but the way the men were written in this, there was not one man that offered any sort of security or benefited the Jodie Comer or any of the women that were struggling in this. Everyone was either painted out as a villain or a coward. And I'm like, fair enough, this is a movie that's speaking about post-mortem depression, about womanhood, about the struggles of being a mother and all of that.
Post-mortem?
Did I say post-mortem?
Post-mortem depression.
Apologies.
The guy's dead. Why? I think he's still depressed.
Well, you did the right thing on correcting me there because I sound like a fucking idiot. But you know what I mean? And in a film like I just thought that, maybe one redeeming bloke might have been nice.
Yeah. I didn't see... I mean, myself, I just watched it without looking into the sort of political... I suppose I've used up all of my political stuff and starting fires with Cumberbatch.
Yeah. So it's my turn now.
Yeah. I know Cumberbatch has a huge following, and he obviously does have some talent as an actor. I just don't like the hypocrisy with some of the things he says and does.
Well, that's my problem with my dislike. It's the hypocrisy of people coming out if female characters aren't well represented in a film. there's witch hunts. But if it's the other way around, like it's very easy to make the men a villain and a coward. If now Chris Nolan films get slated because of how he writes female characters, and that's fair enough. He has to try and improve that. But for me, if you're going to go at a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan with that perspective, you have to go from that perspective for every filmmaker. And in this film, it doesn't feel like there's a fair balance between women and male characters, and it feels like in this film, all the men's are villains. And I'm just saying, I'm just offering food for thought that maybe in this day and age, that's not the right thing.
There is an issue with that there, though, because they can't say that women aren't entirely like this. There'll definitely be some that are, some that aren't. So if Chris Nolan writes a female character, they can't say that there is not one woman on earth that is like that.
Exactly.
And it's like you have to declare that I'm fully aware that not every woman is a housewife. Of course not. They're actually better with education. They're actually more intelligent.
That's where my issue lies. It's that hypocrisy. It's like, well, okay, that's your opinion, then that's fair enough. You don't think the female characters are written well. I don't think the male characters in this are written well. So that's just my thoughts.
Oh, okay.
They might be wrong.
Yeah.
People will soon tell us if they are.
Sí, señor.
My final dislike, lack of names. The end we start from wasn't deep enough into an apocalyptic event for people to not be using their names. I get the whole "this natural disaster is bigger than everyone" approach, but the lack of names made it hard to connect with characters that you should really be connecting with.
Shit, I didn't notice that. You're right.
It is a personal story set amongst a public crisis, and the decision to not flesh out characters by giving them names felt like a huge misstep to me personally.
Yeah, they just sort of waved off the names.
Yeah, oh, you've done one too. Yay, let's jump in a boat.
Oh, yeah, I'm in that boat.
Yeah.
I'm in that boat.
But again, like, fair enough, if this was 10 years later and it's been just dirt rain for 10 years, people aren't going to be introducing themselves. Names, they might have gone, fair enough. Like, okay, fine. But this is such new into event. It's like, why people wouldn't be saying each other's names? And it just felt to me like a bit like, what that's an odd decision, directorial decision there. I didn't really get it.
Maybe it was to let people feel like they could enter the characters and, be the victim.
Yeah, maybe.
Play the victim.
I think, I mean, that could be a way to look at it. But yeah, just for me personally, like, I feel like I would have connected more if I knew who Jodie Comer's character was called. I'd care a bit more,
so
maybe.
Weird, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
So weird.
Well, in the actual casting on their characters, Jodie Comer's known as Woman, Joel Fry's known as R.
That must be how the characters are written in the book.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, and there might be a decent reason for that. The reason that I can see is they're saying it's not about the individuals; it's about the bigger picture,
the experience.
But then you're also asked you're only following one person's or a couple of people's story. Like if you was following loads, then maybe the names wouldn't matter because it's a collective narrative.
They would have been screwed if a situation caused one of them to run off, because what are you going to shout?
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
Bah!
Yeah. Woman 2, come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. I have some questions. What is your all-time favourite natural disaster movie?
This is hard because natural disaster films don't tend to be very high caliber.
It's true.
I mean, it's not Armageddon. That is the cheesiest, most unrealistic thing ever. So it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not. Deep Impact's another one that's very cheddar. The whole Robert Duvall going up into space as a 90-year-old guy to take out. It's just terrible. Volcano's comedy. It's pure comedy.
Yeah.
Twister, they're asking for it. I can't give it to them.
Yep. Don't go chasing twisters.
It's going to have to be Titanic. It has to be. There's an iceberg.
I mean,
it's a disaster.
That iceberg's undefeated.
It's it. At least the spectacle, I get to see what potentially it was like, minus the love story, of what it was like for that terrible night.
I mean, it's a good answer. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
I didn't. I've gone Don't Look Up, a recent film.
Capri.
And yeah, I mean, I could be biased because I like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, and I could be recency biased because it's new in the memory, but I enjoyed that film.
Oh my God. If Leonardo DiCaprio had a son, what would you call him?
I don't know.
Capri's son.
Yeah, you would.
Sorry, it just came to me.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. What is the greatest use of rain in cinema?
7.
Yeah, that's my answer. And I have another answer.
Mm.
Shawshank Redemption. that final
That's
scene.
not continuously.
But it is so impactful that he gets out, he finally breaks free, and he's a very rare time where you welcome the rain and you're just like, yes, hit me. I want to feel it. Touch me, rain. Daddy.
Unforgiven's got some good rain scenes where the hats are getting all like bent from how powerful the rain is. But I think Brotherhood of the Wolf.
I think Seven's the right answer.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's the second biggest villain in the film after John Doe.
What was that movie where there's a guy with 7 split personalities? And Identity. That's rain throughout. That was quite a fun little thriller back in the day. That's a fun little
film, yeah. Ray Liotta, if I remember rightly, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
I like that film. Which actor do you think would make the best survivalist?
Day-Lewis. Because he would have done some bushwork for Last of the Mohique, butchery for gangs, and wheelchair assembly for My Left Foot.
Yeah.
So he
covered all bases.
There'd be things he knows.
He knows things.
He knows how to start a fire. He knows how to butcher an animal and stuff. So I'll go with the Day.
That's a good answer. I've gone Viggo Mortensen.
Why?
Because of his work on the road and his work on Captain Fantastic.
And Lord of the Rings.
I feel like he could handle himself.
He learned to shoot bows in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I think he focused on the wrong films.
Yeah. Well, that's sounds about right, to be honest. But I think Viggo would do all right out there as a survivalist.
Yeah.
In Captain Fantastic, he's sort of this self-sufficient dad, very nature-focused, and I think he probably learnt a bit on there, so I'd have gone him. Yeah. What would you rate The End We Start From out of 10, please?
5.5.
Okay.
I think I'm with the consensus. Like, I've seen a lot of 5.8s and 9s, and I think I'm around that area.
Yeah. Listen, I can see why people are kind of lukewarm on it. It's not groundbreaking enough. There were glimmers of really good,
low budget.
Yeah, I mean there were glimpses. There were certain shots. There were certain directorial decisions that I thought, wow, that's really interesting. But there was also ones that I really did question. So I've gone a little bit higher. I've given it a 6. And like you, it kind of sort of what everyone else is saying really.
Sync up quite well, didn't
it?
we?
That gives The End We Start From a total score of 11.5 out of 20. If you like your disaster films to be wet, worrying, and welcoming of women, or if you have ever wanted to see a child-carrying coma continuously convey courage to cruise through a bloody, floody Great Britain, then The End We Start From could be a film for you. The End We Start From is available to stream on Netflix. Consider watching this one if you enjoyed Children of Men, Mother, and The Road. Should we play a game?
Give it a name, give it a name, give it a name now. We birth a plot and then make a trailer. What the plot?
Action!
You pointed out to me recently that if we do a depressing film, I tend to do really over the top or funny what the plots.
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the beast, isn't it?
It must be me trying to comfort myself.
Well, if you've just consumed a really bleak film, it makes sense to go one of two ways. You match the bleakness and it's a really depressing, miserable what the plot, or it's bonkers to try and lift us up.
A female boxer called Kathy the Claw Murdoch, who lost both her hands in a rare case of manus decidit, that's a Latin translation for hands fell off, is on the brink of ending it all when late one night she gets a mysterious letter through her door. It says, "Don't give up, there's hope for you yet," and it's signed with a big blushing red kiss and an address. She decides the next morning to go to this address where a mysterious drag queen is standing in the rain looking glamorous and dolled up to the nines. Their name is Shelley Locklip Lipton. And Shelley asks her a single question. Do you want to change your life or check out? After a barrage of unanswered questions from Kathy the Claw Murdoch, she confirms she wants to change her life. This is when she is introduced to an underground competition whereby competitors go into a triangular-shaped ring, hands tied behind their backs, and the goal is the most kisses landed on the opponent's face after 5 minutes advances to the next round. This is a mixed-gender sport, and a kiss can be delivered with as much force as needed, but the lips have to touch the opponent first. If you just end up headbutting them, you're out. But if you land a kiss and then accidentally headbutt or chip a tooth, it's all fair. After a couple of losses, the Claw Murdoch ends up becoming the rising star of this underground sport, and she ends up making hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds in illegal betting for this underground sport. She thought her career was over. It weren't.
You've got to hand it to her. She's come back
Yeah.
And she's giving it a bloody good go.
She did.
Well,
she did.
I mean, obviously that is fucking mad.
Almost like a Molly's game, but not.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start, mate. I'm a big fan of the names. Shelley Lipton.
Shelley Lipton. Her name is from being their name is from being the greatest kissing champ up to that point. Now retired and now a scouter, recruiter, because your arms are tied behind your back for the match. So you think of the footwork that the Claw already has from her boxing career. So she's been scouted by Liplock and is a prime candidate to take it. Like, did you ever hear that true story? They did a documentary in it on the tickling, underground world of tickling.
What, there's a fight club for tickling?
There is a fight club for tickling, and you're talking millions of dollars. Rich people go to these like hidden little fake addresses and watch men tickle each other. And there's so much money involved, and like probably abuse as well. It's a very weird underground thing. I beg you to go and read up on that. It's a fascinating documentary.
I mean, I am intrigued by an underground tickle fight club. I definitely am. And I might even nick that idea as a what the plot moving forward.
Might be too similar to this.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll leave it a fair few episodes
I suppose yours is a true story. Mine's just an adaptation of that.
I mean, it's beautifully bonkers.
On the brink of suicide.
Yeah.
Because she no longer can box.
Okay.
Yeah. Gets picked up. That's a support actor in the guise of a drag queen. Exceptional. In the rain. Glammed up. Introduces her to a whole new world where you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And is the sort of kiss off, is it quite aggressive? I guess in its nature it'd have to be, because it's attack and defense.
I almost wanted to write the rule book, because if you're aggressive and your knee ends up hitting them or your shoulder before your lips, you're out. It's to dexterity and accuracy.
Okay.
So good footwork, but if you can dodge out away of a kiss and plant one on their cheek, boom, 5 points.
So it's like Fun War, but with your face.
Yes.
I mean, and obviously I'm here for that.
And you need good cardio to stay on your feet.
Yeah.
So you need the feet of a boxer, the head of a thumb, and the heart of a lion.
Yeah. And that's something we all endeavour to be, are those three things.
All them things.
Yeah.
All them things.
I'm already a thumb, so I'm a third of the way there.
There's got to be some sort of risk. There's got to be some sort of downfall. Because obviously it's illegal, because there's a betting involved, and it's an underground thing. So maybe someone does start investigating it. Maybe she tells her story in the past tense.
Yeah.
Like, it all started here.
So these are my thoughts. It would be very easy for me to go the comedy route of this. For this.
It doesn't have to be funny.
But no, I don't think I'm going to. I'm not going to make it comedic, because I'm going to make something that the thought of two people fighting with their hands or no hands tied behind their back to try and plant kisses on each other's funny, but it's going to be taken so seriously in this film that you're almost not allowed to laugh at it, because it's very competitive.
I like that.
It's very gritty. It's very realistic, if that can be a thing.
We should trial it. We should play it.
Me v you.
Yeah, we tie up our arms or keep our arms behind our backs and
have a kiss off.
Try and land a kiss on the cheek or lips and stuff.
And they'd have to have lipstick on to show the marks, right?
Maybe.
It'd be an easier way to score.
Maybe. But I think that's a good idea, actually. That actually is, brilliant.
Okay.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't need... A ref's great to come in and go, well, it's there.
Yeah.
But what if they smudge their own and stuff? You know?
Well, they'd have to have two, like trunks, they'd have two distinguished and different lip colours.
Imagine how they knock each other out. It would be really fun, serious sport, I think.
And at the end of each round, they go into their corners and they have to have their lipstick reapplied.
Yeah, removed, reapplied.
Yeah.
Fresh.
These are the rules.
And rather than different coloured trunks like boxers have, it's different coloured lipsticks.
Yeah.
Well, here comes Berry Blush. She's a bitch.
Yeah. I think So
I would love to write this.
I'm going full drama, but for every inch of the film, people are going to be like, should this be funny? Am I wrong for thinking that this should be funny? And that's the point.
Yeah. Kind of like Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
Like the title, the whole idea is ridiculous, but it was true and was possible. And they sat there and they were like, we're going to try and kill a goat with
And
telekinesis.
I think you could look at the fact and think that the sport itself is ridiculous, it's funny and all of that. But when you strip away the sport itself, it's about one woman trying to find her identity again. One woman having a very clear path and trajectory, and it's been taken away from her by a Latin hand loss illness.
Yes.
And now she is where she is. So it's a real story of growth. It's a real story of perseverance. And I think those things, they need someone serious behind the steering wheel.
And it shows, like, just because you've lost what you thought was your only talent, actually your footwork is exceptional. It's kind of like a Sound of Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So directing it, I would have a serious director, and I'd have Andrew Haigh, who recently done the superb All of Us Strangers. I think he's a really interesting director. What are you talking about?
Haigh?
Yeah.
Do you think he could do this?
I think he could do. I was impressed with All of Us Strangers. I like that as a film. I'd like to see him tackle a film that should be funny but isn't.
I can't imagine him doing this, but yeah,
yeah.
right.
But no, I'm going with, and part of the reason I'm going with, because one of the other casting I've got is Andrew Scott as Shelley Lipton.
Nice.
I think they worked superbly together in that sort of creative companionship for All of Us Strangers. I'd like to see them work together on something that's a little bit more. It's obviously not as serious as All of Us Strangers, but there's enough dramatic elements and it's still to be considered serious. So I'd like them two working together.
Was that his debut film?
I'm not sure.
Can't recall.
I think it may have been his debut feature.
Because that could be an interesting step.
Exactly, yeah. Imagine him
from it.
doing that. It'd be mad.
And Andrew Scott would look striking in the rain with an umbrella with stilettos, and then his vocal quality.
Oh, he's naturally fabulous. And I think he would add another layer of fabulousness to the character of Shelley Lipton. And as Kathy the Claw Murdoch, this could be recency bias because we done an episode on the Grand Budapest Hotel, but I like Saoirse Ronan for this role.
Nice.
I think she's a fantastic actor, and I think she's gonna go on to bigger and better things. So I'd have them in the dual lead.
I remember thinking she was excellent in Atonement, and she was so young when she did that.
Yeah,
so young.
She's phenomenal. In Little Women, she's fantastic as well. That film Hannah. Yeah, she's great in
with
that.
Eric Bans.
Yeah, so I'd have, and controversial, but I'd have Andrew Haigh directing, and I'd have him directing Andrew Scott as Shelley Lipton and Saoirse Ronan as Kathy the Claw Murdoch, and I'd call the film Claws and Kisses.
Tonight, we are going to witness the most anticipated match in the history of professional
mixed martial arts
for the heavyweight championship of the world.
If you can land a punch, you can land a kiss. If you can take a punch, you can take a kiss. You can't box anymore, but you can still be a winner, Kathy Murdoch.
Well, Shelley Lipton, I need someone to show me how to do it. Will you be there for me?
You bet your bottom dollar I will be.